go to Jeremiah chapter 1. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the... I'm going to look that video just to see how that goes.
You said Jeremiah what?
1. Miss 1. Okay. So last week, I showed you guys a bunch of videos of a bunch of different commercials. And of course, we sat back here and we laughed. But really, the purpose of those videos wasn't necessarily for laughter. It was more to shock and awe, to really sit back and think, okay, what is on TV for real? You know what I'm saying? And just, if you think of the craziness of those videos, and me and you are going to fight, because Trey walked up to me yesterday and he was like, Dwight told me that you showed some movie about, some commercial about balls.
You don't tell an 11-year-old, oh my God.
So he was like, can I see it? I said, nobody should. I was like, nobody should ever see it. And so me and you go.
No, Mom showed Dad the balls one.
What did he say?
He was cracking up.
It's stupid funny. But it's stupid first. It's stupid funny, but it's like, come on. I mean, really, this is a commercial on TV. You know, premature perspiration, for real. You know, and you think about the bod commercial that we saw. The Victoria's Secret commercials that, who was a Corey that was like, ooh!
Yeah. We didn't see them.
We didn't see any of them. I mentioned Victoria's Secret and he like got all kinds of happy.
Or the Axe commercial where all the girls were coming like vultures.
And he was like,
one guy.
Anybody that sprays more than this much Axe, it's got way too much. And he was like,
that junk is strong. It's really strong.
All in moderation.
I was like, come on now. You know, so, you know, this the craziness of these commercials. I could have showed, there was one that I thought was hilarious, where it was a mannequin, and the lady was demonstrating on the mannequin how to spray Axe, so pit, the chesty. And this one girl walked up, and she's like, I know you're not touching my mannequin. And I was like, wow. You know, so, I mean, but think about this, though. Think about what it's portraying. Women as easy. Women are just attracted to the smell, and they'll give up anything for the smell. We watch the Axe shower gel commercials. Those take it to a whole different level, you know? You know, so we have all these different things. These things are trying to show you or make you become somebody or something for some reason. Somebody or something for some reason. So I asked you, and Serena just walked in, here. While we're talking, I want you to, on the left, what side is it?
It was the left side.
On the left side of your paper, I want you to write one or more things that you would like to be or do, and on the right side, I want you to write why. Got it? Okay. So, we have all these different things. Now, one thing I noticed, and so now Serena, you can't write this down because that's cheating. One thing I noticed that nobody said was, God told me that I'm supposed to be, and therefore I want to be. You guys notice that? Nobody said that. Nobody said, you know, I'm going to be because God created me to be. Because God ordained me to be. Because God made me to be. So let's go over to Jeremiah chapter 1. Jeremiah 1, verse 4. And it's
Because the first year of Blossom, that was the first scripture that we had to learn. Jeremiah 1 and 5. So we don't know about that.
Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying. That very first part of this verse is very important. Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying. Everything that precedes this first opening statement here is from God. It is by God, and it is to Jeremiah. This is the most important phrase that he throws out here in the beginning, because this shapes the seriousness of what is about to be said. This shapes the power of what is about to be said, and this also shapes the importance of what is about to be said. Verse 5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. So here's verse 5, he's saying, before I formed you in the womb, before your parents came together, I knew you. Now, the crazy part to think about is, if God knew me before I was born, if he looked at me now, do I still look like the same person that he knew before I was born? It's rhetorical, but it's something to think about. Am I the same person that God knew before I was formed? Because the person that God knew before I was formed was my perfect created self that was being expressed, and that was preparing to be expressed in human flesh. So when I came into humanity, I am just walking out that which God knew in me beforehand. Does that make sense? Or do you need to break that down a little bit? When I look at bread, turkey, sliced turkey, lettuce, tomato, mayo, and mustard, I see sandwich before it is formed into sandwich. Does that make sense? I'm seeing it as a sandwich already. You know, you ever get your mouth just set for a sandwich? I'm sitting there and I'm watching TV and I'm like, you know what? I'm watching college football. I could really go for a turkey sandwich and some chips right now. I look at the ingredients and I see sandwich. Then what ends up happening is I make manifest that which I already saw. Now, if I walk away and somebody puts ketchup on it, that has just changed what I knew. Now it is not the same sandwich that I envisioned, the same sandwich that I ordained it to be. It is now different. I either have to scrape the bread off or start over. What the world is trying to do is it's trying to add ketchup and green peppers and onions and ham and different slices of bread. And toasted bread, and it's trying to add spinach. And I'm not saying these things are bad, but these things are not what your sandwich is supposed to be. Your sandwich is supposed to be 2 slices of whole grain, Sara Lee bread. They just got a free advertising for me because it's bomb, and maybe they'll just send me some free bread and I'd be very happy. 2 slices of whole grain Sara Lee bread with that, what's the turkey? Is it Hillshire Farm?
No, or Oscar Mayer.
I don't necessarily always get that. I think it's Hillshire Farm that I get. Sliced turkey. So I have the Hillshire Farm sliced turkey with some lettuce, some sliced tomato, some mayo, and some mustard. Boom. That's the sandwich that I had in my mind. That's the sandwich that I was envisioning. That's the sandwich I wanted it to be. But if I walk away, or if I'm standing there and somebody reaches over and squirts some ketchup on it, it is now changed. If somebody reaches over and puts some onions in it, not to say onions are bad, but that is not the sandwich that was envisioned from the beginning. God knew you before you were born, and he had a plan for you. But what ends up happening is the world tries to give you onions, tries to give you ham, tries to give you ketchup and say, yeah, take these things on. And now God is looking at you like, you're not the same sandwich that I envisioned for you to be. Yes?
So then when we become saved, is it like scraping what was put on us off?
And we'll talk a lot more about that as we go here. So, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That's powerful. But before you were born, I sanctified you. I gave you exactly what you needed to be, exactly who I called you to be before you were born. God is not going to require anything out of you He's not already put on the inside of you. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to require water out of a container if water's not already in it. Thank you. Toss that here. So I'm not going to require water out of this if it's not there. And here's the problem, is we think And we get frustrated with life sometimes because we're trying to pull things out of us that we don't have on the inside of us. We're sitting here like, Kool-Aid! Be Kool-Aid! Come on! Doggone it! Just get some doggone Kool-Aid! It's still water. Here's the problem. We're turning on the TV and we're seeing Sprite. So then we're looking on the inside of ourselves and being like, why can't I be Sprite? So then we start to try to change ourselves to become more carbonated, to have more lemon lime, to have more sugar. And God is like, no, I just wanted you to be water. That's what I created you to be. We turn on the TV and we see Kool-Aid. And even if we can't really be it, we try to put some food coloring on ourselves just so we just look like it. I can't necessarily be exactly like it, but let me at least look like it. So we try to buy into all the latest fashions, all the latest fads. When deep on the inside, we're not buying into everything that they're buying into. But we just let me put some what's the thing that you put in your water and it's supposed to have like 0 calories.
Oh, those
Crystal Light.
Crystal Light. We put some Crystal Light in here. It's not gonna be Kool-Aid. It's still healthy, but at least I'm gonna look like Kool-Aid. Until somebody tries to taste from you and realizes that. And see, the problem is, the world then tries to taste from you, and they're like, you don't taste like Kool-Aid. And then God tastes from you, and he's saying, you don't taste like water. So you're just messed up. You know what I'm saying? You are in a messed up state of being because you have tried to change yourself to be more like the world, but the world won't accept you because you can't be exactly like it. Then you turn around and you try to come to God. The beautiful thing is God has a Brita water filter. He will pour you in, and you will come out water. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that Brita water filter is the blood of Christ, is the power of the Holy Spirit. Pours you in, and you are made back to where you're supposed to be. Now, sometimes it's difficult. Have you ever asked water what it feels like to go through that process? We've never asked water, what does it feel like to go through there? We just see it going and come out. In between, some stuff gets taken out, some stuff gets, that doesn't feel good. You know what I'm saying? Here you go. Ready?
But I have a question.
Yes.
What if you want to, freeze it or boil it? It's still water. You know what I mean? You want to change it, but it's not necessarily, out of its form.
Here's the problem. With water. When it freezes, it expands. And when you boil it, you lose it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
When you freeze it, it expands. And so it's not the same. It changes. And then when you boil it, you lose some of it because it evaporates. So now you are less than you're supposed to be, or you're trying to be more than you were supposed to be. Does that make sense? Yes.
When you freeze water, do you get more water or no?
Not necessarily, but it seems as such, doesn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, it does.
I'm not exactly sure how that works. I'll look that up one day. Yes.
Okay, so if you have those, titanium...
Okay, let me go ahead and say, I'm not a biology professor. Matter of fact, I think I got a C in biology in high school. So, in chemistry, this is probably more on the chemistry side. I think I got a B minus C plus in chemistry too.
No, it's kind of like a fun fact.
Okay.
If you know those titanium water bottles, you can't see through them and they have that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you put water in it and put it in the freezer, it expands and it breaks it. I've learned that from experiences.
Yes.
It's not cool.
It'll go boom. It's like a can of pop. Yeah.
It breaks. Yeah.
It explodes.
It expands.
Because it expands and then it breaks through. It was not cool. Heated. Really?
So.
I tried it one time so that I could have cold water in the morning. Yeah,
it's like a faster version of treat.
I just left the cap off.
Okay, what?
So did I. No, so did I. I left it off and it's still expanding.
Okay. So before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. And I ordained you a prophet to the nations. Now, here he's talking to Jeremiah, and he's telling him, I ordained you a prophet. He may be talking to you, and he is saying to you, I ordained you, ... Whatever that fill in the blank space may be. The reason why I asked why you want to be what it is that you want to be is because I think at some fundamental level, we have looked to the world to find out who it is that we want to be. I know I'm guilty of it myself. How much easier is it to say, I want to be a football player after sitting down and watching 4.5 hours of football?
It's really easy.
No, you're sitting there like, man. And they come off the field, they're all excited, like, yeah, I'm going to Disney World. And you're like, wow. And then, you see everybody thronging them, and they get in their Range Rover and pull off, and you're like, that's what's up. I could do that. I could play football. And God is sitting in heaven like,
No, you can't.
and he's in heaven like, that's not what I made you to be. That's not what I ordained you to be. Watch Grey's Anatomy. I want to be a doctor. That's exactly. I want to be a surgeon, and I just think it's going to be so much fun, and I have so many friends in the hospital, and God's sitting back like, okay, go through all them years at med school if you want to. That's not what I ordained you to be. I want to be a paleontologist. I just want to dig up dinosaur bones, and travel the country. It'd be so much fun. That's not, and I'm not saying that any of these things are bad things. I'm not saying everybody in here has to be a preacher. Trust me, most people shouldn't be.
Because not everybody is born to be a preacher. Some people
Exactly.
are born to be listeners.
Exactly. Somebody is born to be an attorney. Somebody is born to be a doctor. Somebody is born to be a paleontologist. Somebody is born to be an architect. But is that somebody you? That's the question I really want to deal with. Did you go to God, or have you been influenced so much? Because people say, doctors make so much money, attorneys make so much money, and you already like to debate, so it'll fit perfectly for you. And I'm not saying that that's not what you're called to do. I'm just raising the question. I love working with little kids. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a pediatrician. I'm not saying that you're not going to be. Just raising the question. You had like everything under the sun. You was trying to be, Langston Hughes, Usher, Michael Jackson, George Washington Carver, and Spike Lee all rolled up into one person. And I mean, I'm not saying that you're not called to do any of those things. I'm just raising the question. Was it that you saw something, you experienced something, you've listened to people, and you've come to this conclusion that, man, I would really love to? Or has God spoken to you and said, this is what you are called to do?
Could it be both? Like you said it and you also like it?
Of course. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. 3 years ago, I would have told you you're crazy if you told me this was what I was going to be doing. I tell you, when like this is moving weekend of my freshman year, had you told me, Wayne, you're going to have an unbelievable encounter with God in October, you're going to stop playing football, and you're going to do ministry, I'd have been like, you funny. Because in my mind, what I was going to do is I was going to go to Gustavus. I was going to start at quarterback. I was going to see how well I liked Gustavus. I really liked it. So but I also had the opportunity, if I wanted to go to the University of Minnesota and play football. So I was going to consider going to the University of Minnesota, finishing it out there because it's cheaper. I probably would have got a scholarship, playing football there, and then if I didn't make it in football, going to law school, and then becoming an attorney, either becoming an attorney or a sports agent, and then one day becoming a judge, and then a Supreme Court justice. That was and then it got to the point where I was praying, and I thought God was telling me that's what I was going to do. That's a strange place to be. But I found that your heart can sound a lot like God. And your heart will be so sold out to something or somebody. And you'll be like, God has called me to be with this person. I just know it. We're just so perfect. My heart just feels for their heart, and God is just so in this. And it's like, no, boo, that's your heart. That's not God. God's not telling you to be with that person. That's your heart. It's a difficult place to be. But yeah, moving weekend, I was talking to one of my friends, a guy I just met from from South Dakota. He was on the debate team. I was in mock trial, and we just clicked. And that Saturday night, where they had all like the square dance, and on Saturday night they had like the square dance, and they had a scene called a highlighter party. I didn't want to go to the square dance because I just don't do country.
I don't do
I
country.
couldn't do it.
I know.
Oh
So,
my God.
me and him sat and watched Clemson versus Alabama and talked. And I was saying, you know, I would really love, I said, I'm majoring in philosophy, and I want to be an attorney. And he's like, yeah, I'm majoring, and I think he was majoring in political science with a minor in philosophy. He wanted to be a politician, and neither one of us ended up finishing at Gustavus. Neither one of us ended up staying in our majors. Ended up switching to religion. He ended up switching to music. He's a very talented musician. And I remember sitting there, and that's what I was, and had he turned to me and said, you'll be a pastor, I'd have been like, yeah. Anyway. You know, you couldn't have told me I was going to be here, right now, talking to y'all. Couldn't have told me that.
Come on.
So,
But, like, didn't before you left, you were prophesying, though?
yes.
Or was that it was before you left? Yeah.
But still,
That should have given it away, though.
but not everybody that prophesies is a pastor.
That's true.
That is true.
That's true.
I mean, look at Saul. Saul, in the book of 1 Samuel, runs into Samuel. Samuel tells him that he was going to prophesy. He ends up prophesying with the prophets, and they said, what's going on? Samuel's prophesying. Samuel ended up being king. He was never a priest. So that didn't give me any indication that I'm going to be a pastor. Had you told me, moving weekend, had you told me, you're going in 3 months you're going to have an encounter with God and everything's going to change. Quit playing. You know what I'm saying? Because I got so conditioned to listen to my heart. But I figured this is, see, sometimes we get so caught up in what we think we're good at that we're like, well, obviously this is what I'm supposed to do because I think I'm good at it. I can talk, for real. And so I figured, if I'm this good at talking, if I'm this good at conversation, if I'm this good at argumentation, well then obviously I'm supposed to be. And not to say that God won't use what you're good at, because obviously He is. You know what I'm saying? But I got so caught up in what everybody said I was good at, and what I thought myself that I was good at, that I thought, I obviously meant to be an attorney. But then God stepped in, and I got to have a Jeremiah 1 moment. Before you were born, I knew you, I ordained you to be. God told me what it was that I was supposed to be. God will tell you. But here's the thing. You have to make sure that you're looking to Him to find Him. And you're not looking to television. You're not looking to the social media. You're not looking to your friends. Because when you look to those things, you're getting taken off course because God's not going to speak necessarily through those things all the time. There'll be times where God will just get your attention through something outrageous. I mean, there's times that God has got my attention. God got my attention through a football game one time. I was sitting there watching a high school football game. And on TV. And then next thing I know, boom, I'm on the floor. And God is just, this is what I need you to do. This is what you haven't done. This is the strategy I need you to have. I'm sitting there watching high school football, and this happens. God can get your attention through these things, but God wants to speak to you about who it is that you are supposed to be. So He says here, I ordained you a prophet to the nations. Then said I, it's Jeremiah, ah, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a youth. Now, when Jeremiah says this, it's not the same thing that Moses said. Moses' issue was he had a speech impediment.
You did?
Yeah, Moses probably had a stuttering problem. If one of y'all kids come out and stutters, I'm going to be like, see, remember that day in class when I talked about Moses having stuttering? So Moses probably had a stuttering problem. But what he doesn't realize is had he just responded to God and said, yes, I'll do it, his stuttering would have been gone.
Yep.
But here, Jeremiah is not talking about ability as far as his ability to speak. He doesn't have an impediment. His issue is the culture. Culture says he's not supposed to say anything. See, in this time period, in this culture, as a young person, you are mute. You have nothing to say.
What do you do?
What do you say? What reason do you have to say anything? At this point, you're probably an apprentice to somebody. So the only thing that you can say is,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir, or
Yes, sir.
Yes.
can you explain that to me a little bit further? And that's probably as far as you can go. And that's probably after the whole thing's done, because if we watch the disciples, they never asked Jesus questions in the middle of something going on. They always waited till they retreated, and then they asked questions. So it was probably after the job got done, after the person was standing there, they would leave, and he'd say, so how did you make that table level? Or how did you, get that iron to look like that? You know what I'm saying? That's about as far as questioning would go. So here he's saying, the culture is telling me I can't. Let me tell you that the culture is telling you that you can't. The culture wants you to believe that you're supposed to be inundated with social media, in illicit relationships, drinking as soon as, having different sexual things going on in your relationships as soon as you possibly can. Drinking as soon as it's legal or beforehand. Literally. I mean, honestly, I can't watch a football game, and I love football. Can't watch a football game without seeing a Miller Lite commercial. Every commercial, like every commercial time, at least one beer commercial comes on. At least. I think that's a problem, especially in college sports. And in college, you technically won't be able to drink until the end of your junior year. So we're talking about the first 60 to 70% of college students can't drink. Well, 30% can, but you're advertising to that 30%. That's crazy. And high schoolers watch college football all the time because that's where they want to go. They want to be in college. They want to be playing college football. So you have a high percentage of high schoolers now who are watching this, and they're seeing it every time. ESPN, all the time. That's the one thing I have against ESPN, is it's run by alcohol. So you have these things coming on all the time. It's telling you that you're supposed to try to dress sexy, that you need to lose all the weight. And fellas, that you need to put the weight on. You need to have the six-pack and the pecs and the deltoids and the biceps, and then spray Axe everywhere.
Or Bob.
Or body spray. They're just saying you got to do these things. They're telling you because ultimately your goal in life is to live for the weekend, and party, and your goal is to hook up with as many people as possible. Think about the number of commercials that show random hookups versus the number of commercials that show committed relationships. The only commercials I ever see that show committed relationships are K. Jeweler commercials.
Yep.
That's because only way I'm spending that much money on anybody is if I'm in a committed relationship for real. But other than that, you got, like I saw this Coke Zero commercial yesterday during a football game, and it starts with this little boy, and they go to hand him an ice cream cone, and he says, and they put sprinkles on it and put a cherry on top. He's all excited.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and he's like shaking the guys. He's like, you got the job. Shaking his hand. He's like, and? He's like, and you've got 3 weeks paid vacation and benefits and stocks and bonds. Very good, And then he's like trying on some jeans, and this girl walks past, and she goes, those jeans look nice on you. He goes, and she's like, I get off in an hour. And it's like, I was like, and then like he drinks Coke Zero, and it's like this explosion in his mouth, and he looks on it, and it says, Coca-Cola taste and 0 calories. And he's like, yes.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, so random sexual encounters are just like that easy. And it's expected. Yeah. And they're expected. I mean, you watch these commercials, you watch these television shows. I mean, sometimes I watch certain television shows, and I'll get, kind of worked into the story. But then somewhere along the line, I'll go, this is stupid. How many people have you slept with in this season?
Wow.
Like the Secret Life of the American. Oh, don't go there.
Life of a teenager.
Don't go there.
I've actually never watched Schooling, and it's surprising because I was a show choir person in high school.
Do not go there.
You know, so I mean,
No.
Issues.
you know, I mean, I've been
Don't go
I've
there.
been outwardly against the show, The Game,
The games.
because it's like, okay,
It's
So-
nothing but a black version of Friends.
a little bit. It's actually more. It's trying to portray an athlete's life, but I'm like, what are y'all showing people? You know, so you have all these different things, and all these things are trying to say, be this. And God is sitting back saying, I told you who you were before you were born. So, culture is trying to say, and then when God comes to you again and says, I want you to be a scientist. I don't want to be a nerd.
That's funny you say that because it's like back in the 80s and the 70s, the 60s, everything that culture said you're supposed to be or what you should be, in about a generation, maybe two, people have turned that on its head. So now it's cool to be a nerd. Why? Because you come up with something, put it out, and make $400 billion.
Right.
Right? But I mean, think about it. So think about it. Like all the guys that are like really, really rich now. I mean, whoever, not from inheriting money, but who have gone out and actually created something. They were outcasts in their time. They were outcasts. They were what one author calls outliers. But yeah, they were not seen as normal. Gates wasn't normal. I mean, you know, had them big old horn rim glasses.
He was normal.
You know, big, I mean, in the 70s, drop out of
But you know
Harvard,
what?
man, you gotta be crazy. You got in, and you gonna drop out? What is that?
But you know what? I think what is happening is, I think even in this generation, they're still outcasts. But what has happened is they get their money and they start looking normal.
Yep, that's true. That's a good point.
Like,
So,
like,
Mark Zuckerberg,
Yep,
perfect example.
Yep.
He created Facebook because he was an outcast.
yep,
He was trying to get into the popular group.
yep. Now
And-
he created his own group. 700 million strong.
If Facebook was a country,
Right.
if Facebook was a country, it would be the third largest country in the world.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. How do you do that?
who does
How,
that?
how do you do that?
Who created MySpace?
Tom. Tom was everybody's friend on MySpace.
Tom did it.
So,
Wow.
so you
That's
have
a good point.
So, and I think this generation, it's so bent on being anti-culture that being anti-culture is the culture.
Right.
So the anti-culture culture is saying that you can't.
Culture.
It's saying
That's
that,
a good point.
That-
It's a good
yeah.
powerful concept.
I mean, it's like in church,
Easy.
people who are non-denominational,
Are
they're in a denomination called non-denominational.
Yep.
You know, so, I mean, people are so trying to, you know, I think what ended up happening was, really, for a look at history, in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, Vietnam happened, changed everything.
Yeah. It is.
Because now all of a sudden, everybody's fighting for power. And then you got, you know, we're not going to take it. No, we ain't going to take it.
Twisted sister.
And then, and now everybody's like, you know, forget the police and don't like politicians and all these different things. But that's become a culture all in itself that people are trying to get into. So now what's happening is people look at those who are older as the culture and they're trying to be opposite of it. That's been going on since the 70s because people who grew up in the 80s were trying to be against something. Hippies were more 60s and 70s.
But like in
Well, you
history,
know-
we talked about it. Like the teens don't want to be like their parents. Like
That's what I was
in the
gonna say.
50s, they
Right
didn't
there.
want to listen to rock and roll. I mean, they didn't want to listen to classical music, so they invented rock and roll, something that they could dance to and move
Okay.
to.
I'm going to let you think they invented rock and roll. I'm going to let you.
No, that's
No,
what our
don't-
teacher
no,
told us.
educate. Don't let
That's what my
No.
teacher said.
Wasn't
Who
any,
Rock-
who invented rock and roll?
Old people.
Old people?
Yeah.
No.
They
No.
He said like the younger generation like changed the way that like they didn't listen to their parents' old-fashioned music.
And
like,
old-fashioned music
reinvented
wasn't
it.
necessarily classical. Old-fashioned music was more swing
Yeah.
Sure.
But like,
and jazz.
Yeah.
but wasn't like all kinds of music derived from gospel?
No.
No.
Not true.
All kind of music was derived from Gregorian chant.
What's that?
It's one of the more ancient types of music that we know.
We kind of do it when we say, oh, actually, we tap back into that.
Like, you know, when we do the war cry, whatever the war cry happens to be, whatever the war cry is reminiscent of Gregorian chant.
It starts back there.
So it's just a letter?
No.
No, I mean,
What is that?
It's a sound.
I'll play one for you before you leave.
It starts with that. And then people just taking that piece of it and basically use it for whatever was going on at their time. So it just progressed. So no, the old people didn't invent rock and roll. What happened was they were, a lot of music, at least in the last 100 to 125 years, a lot of it evolved based on what was going on, which is what Elder's talking about with the culture piece. So the world says, okay, the culture is this. So the music and the fashion and all those different components change to reflect what people are trying to move toward. And really what it is it is a stand against authority. Because people don't like authority. People don't like telling them what to do. Even through all of these, which is crazy. But they don't. So they say, okay, well, I want to live in a world where nobody tells me what to do. But at the end of the day, somebody is going to tell you what to do, even if it's a police officer, because they put laws in place. Laws tell you what to do and how to act.
Or even if it's somebody within that countercultural movement, which is telling you what it means to be countercultural.
Yeah.
Taking the lead.
I mean, one thing that I've heard rap talk about a lot is, you know, ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do. When I get on a music video and talk about Air Force Ones, I'm telling you what to buy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody's always telling you what you get. People get on songs and talk about all the weed they smoke. They're telling you it's okay. Therefore, you can or should do it yourself.
Yeah. That's what we talk about so many messages.
You got a durable phone.
I do have a durable phone.
Oh, that's a good example. The child in the Apple Factory. I mean, that was great because that whole concept was at the end. But no,
You do if we say you do.
you do what we say you do. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
You do if you.
Yeah, he's like, do you really need all this crap? You do if we say you do. And it's true. I mean,
but that's based on what we're talking about. Apple has created a culture.
really, because I'm.
They've created a culture. Because everybody's got to have one. I'm getting one. I mean, I want to be in it. I want to be cool. I do. But I got to pay a price. I got to, because they are expensive. But here's the thing. And that's a funny example, but it's still true. It's still true because
That's true.
everybody wants to be accepted at the end of the day. That's why Facebook is so big. That's why we got all this new stuff on social media. We're all, what the word is, narcissistic to a certain degree. Everybody's got something. Which basically says, I am about me. I am centered on me. It's about what I think, what I feel, what I am about. So what people have done is they have tapped into that and made it a product. And now we are all just fighting over it.
iPod.
iCloud, which is going to come out in another month.
iCloud. What's
Everything.
iCloud?
iCloud
It's
is you're going to be able to put everything in the cloud or not on your device and get your music, your files, your everything. And you're going to actually sell another iPhone that's not as expensive and as technologically advanced as that one. So because everything's going to be somewhere off in a server farm.
The hilarious thing is I've gotten to like none of my notes. But here's the interesting thing. So we're told all these things about who it is and what it is that we're supposed to be. And we're listening. And here's the thing. God has sat back and He has already ordained you to be something. And what you have to understand is anything that you add to what God has already called you to be is junk.
Oh, that's good.
We use a sandwich analogy. If I want a turkey sandwich with lettuce, tomato, mayo, and mustard, and all of a sudden I go to eat the sandwich and it's got pickles in it, I'm going to be mad because I don't like pickles.
I don't think
I don't like pickles.
Like that.
I'm going to be mad. If there's ketchup on the sandwich, I'm going to be heated.
I'm gonna ask him, you know you did.
But see, that's a good point. What is junk to one person? See, you may be looking at somebody and you're like, well, you're looking at somebody and be like, well, they got to be an actor. Okay, but that was the sandwich that they were created to be.
Right.
Not you.
Like, if I went to McDonald's and they gave me a grilled burger,
Yeah.
I'm going to be confused.
Yeah.
Because that's not what McDonald's does.
They don't do stuff.
They
don't make
fry
sandwiches.
They don't sell Whoppers either.
You know what I'm saying? Can I get a whole mess of fries and a Whopper patty? So, he just, that's Sean Plummer's church. That's another endorsement I just gave out. Somebody need to send me a check or something. A keyboard kid. But no, McDonald's doesn't sell Whoppers. But here's the thing. At McDonald's, that's not going to be what it's made. That's not what it's supposed to do. Anything that you add, see, if I went to McDonald's and the onion ring was in the bottom of my bag, I'd be confused.
Hey, it's free onion.
You go to Burger King? Hold on.
If you go to Burger King, they give you one free onion ring.
You go to Burger King?
Fries.
If you go to Burger King and you order fries and there's not an onion ring in your fries, you might actually go back up there and go, hey, where's my onion ring?
Right.
There is always an onion ring in the bag
Right.
when you go to Burger King.
And then when you get onion rings, there's always one fry in there.
It's almost as if they're saying, here's a sampler platter, just so you know, so you can have diversity. But that's not, and anything you add is junk. You have to understand who and what you were created for. I mean, we could talk about, last week we started talking about marriage and relationships in general. And what you have to understand is, like ladies, when you get in all these relationships, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 2, it's not good that man should be alone. I'm going to make him a helper suitable. What's interesting is the word that God uses when he says a helper is the same word that David uses in the Psalms every time he says that God is my help. So don't look at the term help and think, so I'm like somebody's slave. No. Look at the context. So when he says I'm make him a helper suitable, if you were designed to be somebody's help, right? Every time you get in a relationship, you start taking on the rules of that person and how to help them. So then when you finally meet the person you're supposed to be with, you got all these ideas, all these rules, all these thoughts about what it means to help in your mind because of all those different people. And you get to him and he'll say, I got one thing I need you to do. But you got all these other things that you think needs to happen, you know what I'm saying? And that one thing you can't get done because you're so intoxicated with all these other things. That's why I'm against relationships at your age. Because all you're going to do is train yourself to be something that you don't need to be. If I'm supposed to be a pitcher, there is no point in me throwing with the outfielders because I'm going to learn how to throw incorrectly. You can't throw a baseball as a pitcher the same way you do as an outfielder. It's not the same motion. It's not the same velocity. So then I'm going to get to the plate and it's going to go and they'll be like, man, why you feel like that? Get in the outfield. What happens is you're either permanently a bad help or it takes you time to detox and unlearn all those rules so that you can take on what it means to help the person you were called to. That's a bad situation to be in. Fellas, it's the same thing. I mean, let's think about it honestly. If you were designed to have somebody who was your help, and what it means for somebody to be a help is for them to fulfill the call of God on your life, right? If there's a girl in your life and she's not helping you fulfill the call of God, she's not a help, she's a distraction. She's taking you off course. So then all of a sudden, you got all these other girls, and man, all these girls took me off course, so I don't know if I can trust you to help me. It's not a good thing to come into your marriage with. It's not. So then what is happening is, if you do not know what the call of God is for your life, then you don't need a help. You need a prophet. And you need the Word of God to instruct you and guide you as you go. But you don't need some girl. Because then you're sitting there and you aimless, and she's trying to help you. So she's helping you be aimless. So all of a sudden, God is telling you to go to that door, and you up at Dairy Queen. And now you got to spend time coming all the way back over here.
That's wasting time.
That's a good point.
And then, I mean, and we've talked about this. I think sexual relations messes the whole thing up. Because the whole concept of sex is being one with the person. And you're only supposed to be one with one person in your life. All things considered, you know, I mean, I understand the spouse dies, all those different things. But all things considered, you're only supposed to be one with one person in your life. But then what's happening is you come into your marriage and you one with, so it's like, I Johnny, take you Lisa, Ricky, Bobby, Sean, Jaleel, Junebug,
Javante.
Washington, Javante, and Pookie to be my lawfully wedded wife.
Oh yeah,
Wait,
I'll be
can I
arguing.
say something?
But you get what I'm saying?
Someone, this guy was like, men aren't supposed to be cheaters. It's in the Bible. And I was like, where did you read that? And he's like, we're supposed to multiply. That means I can have multiple women and make babies with multiple women.
That's a lot.
Oh my! I would have laughed. I'd be like, okay, now to me,
That's funny.
his logic doesn't make sense because multiplication involves two numbers. Typically, when you start doing multiplication, it's 2 times 4. We multiply. When it gets complicated when you start going 2 times 4 times 3 times 12 times 8 times 9 times 6. Somebody tell me what that was.
I don't know.
But if I said 2 times 4, if I say 2 times 4,
8.
it's a lot easier to multiply when it's 2 of you.
Not that type.
Multiplication becomes difficult when you start adding extra numbers. That's why we have what's called exponents. Exponents just make multiplying with extra numbers easier.
Go ahead,
And they only got 2 numbers.
Still, it comes back down to 2 numbers. You will say 10 times 3 to the negative 3rd power. That makes life easier. You're putting 2 numbers in, putting an exponent on there. So that I can have multiple women.
That makes me so mad.
That is super funny.
I just hung up. I was so mad.
I wouldn't even mad.
Why was you on the phone with him in the first place?
How
He's
did you
like, I
guys
need you
know?
to come over. And I was
Okay,
like,
no.
no.
Can I do that?
Wow.
So that's important to understand. Is that makes all these things make things more complicated. If God is asking for you to be. So here's my assignment for you for this week.
Oh Lord.
How many first week of school?
Tuesday.
Okay. So this is the first week of school.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I know you, but you get out before that.
I'm just kidding.
I get up before you, so don't try me.
Anyway, Ricky Bobby. Ricky Bobby.
Oh, wow.
Bobby Whitney, please. Why did I say Ricky Bobby? Who is Ricky Bobby?
Ricky Bobby.
From Talladega Nights.
I'm kidding.
Right?
Anyway.
Talladega Nights, yeah. Do the Ricky Bobby. Stop. Pose your friend. Dwight is officially tickled.
That was
You know he tickled when he started laughing in a high-pitched voice.
yeah. Wow.
So, my assignment for you for this week is to ask God. And you guys are at a prime stage in life. I mean, some of you guys are just getting ready to go to high school. Man, if I would have known what I know now, freshman year of high school, you know, it'll change the way that you sit in class. It'll change what classes you take. It'll change what college you go to. Because you'll be like, I just want to move. I want to go to Atlanta.
No.
California.
I have nothing against all my ATL people. I have nothing against you.
I'm not going there.
Just saying. So, I want you guys to think about that this week. What God is it that you have ordained me to do? We'll talk about it next week. Love you guys. God bless.